Well, hi, everyone. This is Taylor, and I'm here with Shamia Casiano. She is a branding expert, but I'm sure she can introduce herself a lot better than I can, so I'll let her do that.
Hi, Taylor. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Shamia, like you said, and I am a designer and branding architect and expert. I'm embracing that. And basically, I help create real-ass brands for bad bitch entrepreneurs who want to attract their ideal people and make mad money. So that's my thing that I do.
I love it. And so one reason I was really excited to have you on here is because you've also had another business. So I don't know where you want to start with this, but I'd love for you to kind of share with everyone how you got started as an entrepreneur and then also how you ended up doing branding.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Well, my previous business, I was a love coach, love and communication coach. I started that because originally I had a relationship blog, and it was just me blogging about my experience as someone with like ugly duckling syndrome, and having never been in a relationship, and then having met the love of her life and ending up marrying him. And so it was just my journey as someone who basically had no, like, I didn't really have any, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Any examples, there we go. Any examples in my life of healthy relationships or marriages. My mom never got married. I don't know who my dad is. And my friends, all of them were being raised also by single moms. And so I just never really had that, that kind of influence in my life. So a lot of it was me going through the experience, but also reading a lot. I read a lot of books on relationships, a lot of books on communication. My huge thing is personal development. I just really believe that when you work on yourself, which ties into branding, which I'll get into, but when you're fully who you are and you show up, then whoever is not your perfect match, it doesn't matter. So while I was writing this blog, I was sharing it on Facebook. I didn't really expect anything, but it was just something that I wish I had access to, like something I could have read as someone who, you know, I grew up a nerd. I was into like really nerdy things, and my friends in high school were basically like the outcasts. And so like I never really connected with like boys and things like that in that way. I had crushes, and they're called crushes for a reason. and so like that was the extent of my exposure to like relationships. And then I just kept sharing and showing up, and people were like sending me questions. And I messed up in the first part because I would just answer them in the message. And then I had the epiphany, like, why don't I just bring that over to my blog? I bet a bunch of other people have the same kinds of questions. So then I started a little segment that's like Ask Shamia. And so people would just submit their questions. And then I ran into online Gabrielle Bernstein. And she's a huge, like, into like personal development and really getting your shit together on yourself so that you can have healthier relationships. And so back in the day, she had a forum called Her Future. And so I signed up because I love forums. Like, it's just, that's the nerd in me. And so I was just intrigued, and I was like, oh my God, a community of women, you know. And so what I started to do was eavesdrop on the relationship threads. And so I would take whatever situation those people were going through, those women, and I would just write about it from my own view and how I would go about, you know, changing the situation for themselves. And then obviously Gabrielle is a entrepreneur. And so she had a bunch of information on it, and it intrigued me. And you know how back in the day when Facebook ads were just starting out, you know, it was like new, so everything intrigued me. So I ended up seeing Marie Forleo, and so I was like, who is this? So I started going on her blog and watching her YouTube videos, and it was great because she would mix mindset with business, and I had never thought about that, obviously. And then that's when it was like one after the other. I was like, hey, maybe I could turn this into a thing. So I literally Googled relationship coaches, and a bunch of them popped up, but they were all older. They were like 40s and 50s. And a lot of them were also matchmakers. And although I love helping people, I wasn't really passionate about like setting people up. And so I recognized that early on. So that was super important for my journey to realize what I didn't want to do. And so then during this whole time, I was doing, I was working at a bakery. I was nannying. I was doing a bunch of stuff.
How old were you at this point, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I was about, oh my God, you're going to make me count. Oh my God. I was probably a couple years out of college. So maybe like 22, 23. Okay. I'm 28 now. I turned 29 in July. Yeah. And so I was still like early. So I was very impressionable and eager because, you know, you get out of college, and I graduated with a theater degree, and I'm still pursuing that. And that is just brutal. There's just like, no, if you ever want to get a thick skin, just audition for things. So, or become an entrepreneur, honestly. And so I was doing all of this and learning, and finally I was like, you know what, I think I want to do it. And so I quit my bakery job. Well, that's a funny story. I remember I was working 4th of July, and I was so mad because I was like, oh my God, I don't want to work on this day of independence. Like, you know, I was like, this is sucky. So being who I am, I made a little thing. There was like a lull in the bakery, and I took a receipt paper, and I was like, I felt called to write human needs, not corporate greed. And so I wrote that, and I stuck it on my apron, and I was like walking around and like having fun and, you know, doing whatever. Cause I was like, it's the day of independence. It makes sense to like write that. And then the manager pulled me aside, and she was like, you can't wear that. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, you know, like you can't. And I was like, well, I'm not going to take it off. And then she was like, then I have to send you home. I was like, okay. And she was like, you know, something personal. And I was like, no, I know you have to do what you have to do, but I'm also going to do what I have to do. And I felt like that was a sign. I was like, this is the fire under my ass that's going to push me to start this love coaching business. And so I went home that day. And then the next day I called and said, I'm not coming in. and they were like ever? And I was like, yeah, I quit. This is, I accepted another job, and I'm not, it's not, you know, I'm sorry, but this isn't for me. And she was like, okay. I could hear in her voice that she wasn't too happy. But I was like, if I go back to this place, I'm not going to be the one to give in a 2 weeks notice and set everything up. I have to be action jackson. Yeah. Like, yeah, I just did it. Balls to the wall. I was like, I got to fucking do this. So, of course, then I had to tell my husband because I literally did all this without telling him, but he knew that I was like researching, putting myself out there. I had this blog, and I was ready to do it. So then I had to like sit with him, and I was like, hey, I quit my job, but I have a plan, and I'm going to be a love coach. And it's so funny the way he talks about it now. he did it in the moment, but looking back, he told me, he was like, when you said that, I was like, what the hell is a love coach? How the fuck are you going to make money? What is she doing?
Yeah.
Like, where is she getting these ideas? But on the outside, he was like, I support you. And that was like a huge help. And so that was like really, really important to me, because if he had gone the other way, I would have been like, I don't know if this is going to work out, because I really want to pursue this. And then, so I was still doing like other little side gigs. But then he was like, you know what, you should focus on your business, because every entrepreneur who gives it 100%, like they blast off into success. And so I was like, okay. And so I went and I signed up for, I'll never forget, I'm still a subscriber to Help a Reporter Out, because I was like, I need to put myself out there. And Marie Forleo and Gabrielle Bernstein were talking about, you should be guest blogging. You should be like going on other blogs and exposing yourself. Like, you can't just keep your own little world. You have to expand it. So I was like, ooh, I never really written for anyone before. So I did that. And by chance, I saw a reporter who was looking for someone to contribute to an article in Ebony magazine. And I was like, I don't know. You know, I was like, I don't know. But it was directly in my lane. It was about love, communication, and just like the do's and don'ts in relationships. And I was like, I read about that all the time. Like, I really had to set my mind right. I was like, okay, I am an expert. I know what I'm doing and I can do this. So I reached out to her, and she actually emailed me back, and I was like, oh my God, I have to like do shit now. And so not even a month later, me and my husband went down to our local Walgreens, and we picked up a copy of that month's issue of Ebony, and there was my name in it. And I was like, oh my God. I took pictures, I posted it on my Instagram. Yeah. And I was like, I can't believe this. And so that really boosted my confidence. And then so I started really refining my brand and really honing in on my specialty, because I was all over the place. I was like, I help married people, newlyweds, engaged people, like men, women. And finally I settled on introverted single women, because I'm an introvert and I felt like, you know, that is my zone of genius. And then from there I started seeing other people online and joining online communities on Facebook. And that completely changed everything. I met one of my mentors. Her name is Shanae Howard, and she runs Hey Shanae, and she's a brand strategist and a business coach. And she had a program called Piece of Cake. And I saw it and I immediately knew that it was for me. The problem was, it was like $3,000. I didn't have $3,000. And so I was like, I have to figure this out. I have to do like what I got to do. And
at this point, were you making money yet? So you're thinking about an investment.
Yes.
Money.
Here's the thing. I made money, but I made money by putting ads on my blog. So I was just, I had, because, you know, you got to be smart about it. It wasn't much. It's probably like $50 here, $100 there. You know how it goes. And so I was making money, but I wasn't making that money. So that's why it was even more scary to invest in such a high level program. But I knew that it was important. And I knew that if I wanted to charge those prices, I needed to, you know, walk the walk. And so my husband has a PayPal account. And in it, he had a PayPal credit limit of exactly $3,000. And I was like, this is a sign from the Lord Jesus Christ. And so I was like, okay, PayPal lets you go 6 months without any payments and no interest. So that was like my sort of another fire under my ass, that I had 6 months to land a client. And I kept blogging. I kept going on Her Future, and I found my first client on Her Future. And I remember I also got asked to speak at a sex and intimacy conference in Austin, Texas. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I was like, we got credit cards? I was like, I got to start swiping because this is like how I got to do it. And I remember my flight, it was a layover, and we were stopped at San Francisco because of this torrential downpour. And so I was going to stop in LA to visit my sister-in-law. But I was in San Francisco, and they were like, we don't have any flights. You're going to have to stay the night here. And I was like, oh my God, I don't have any money. What am I going to do? And literally that moment, my client paid me $2,500. And I was like, oh my God. I screenshot it. I sent the bank account information to my husband. I was like, look what happened. And he was like, holy shit. And so from there, it was just onward and upward. I started creating programs where I gave women makeovers. And I'm also interested in photography. So I was like, how could I incorporate that? So I also did photo shoots with them. And that allowed me to go back to LA and shoot with the client there, who also paid me like $3,000. And it was just this amazing thing. Like, I was doing stuff that I literally didn't know a single person who was, first of all, an entrepreneur, second of all, a love coach, and third, like traveling and having the freedom and getting paid like thousands of dollars for their expertise and their, you know, their stuff. And I was just blown away. And yeah, so that's how I started my love coaching business.
Yeah.
So it was just awesome. Yeah, so it was a struggle for a while. And I know that you mentioned about talking about the struggles. Like, I was also attending this church, and at the time I had a friend who was also going to the same church. And so my thing was, I have to build this business. I can't like hang out and do all this other stuff. Like, it's not that I didn't want to be social, but it helped that I was an introvert. So it wasn't like, it wasn't like it rolled off my back. But then I remember she approached me one day in my kitchen, and she was like, you know, I just heard some stuff. And I was like, what do you mean? I thought like something happened, someone died or something, because she was like grave about it. And she was like, you know, I heard people spreading rumors that, you know, they heard about your business, because I was like friends with people from church on Facebook, like a normal person. Right. And yeah, right. And so she was like, you know, some people at the church are saying that you know, you're not helping people, you're like helping them get divorced. And I don't know if anyone watching has ever been to a Christian church, but like, thou shalt not get divorced is like the 11th unofficial commandment. And so when she said that, I was like, what do you even mean? Are you kidding? She was like, no, they think that you're someone who helps people get divorced, and like you're doing like this weird thing, and like they just didn't understand. And I remember sobbing to my husband, just straight breaking down. I was like, how could these people do this? Like, this is why people don't like church. And I was saying like all this stuff. And he was like perfect in his summation of how I should treat this situation. He was like, fuck them. Like, you've done all these amazing things. Look what you've accomplished. And he like brought them all up. And I was just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, why am I feeling like this? Like, this is not even about me. This is about them. And, you know, they could have easily gone up to me and been like, hey, I see the stuff you post on Facebook. What's that about? I'm interested. I'm curious. But instead they were like, since they didn't understand, their first instinct was to judge it. And so that hurt me, but it also fueled me more. Yeah. And so I started posting more. I was like, look at me. I'm renting a car in like LA, and like, oh, I'm chilling with all my friends, and just, oh my God, I wake up at noon and
Yeah.
And like, oh, I have a lunch in the middle of the day with my friends and stuff like that. Not saying that you should like brag, but I was just trying to show my journey also to others, because I know there's so many people on my friends list who want to accomplish a lot of stuff in their life. I know as millennials, like, we want to make a difference. And I think that's what separates us from other generations. We're not satisfied with just doing shit for money.
Right.
If that was the case, then we would just have jobs. But no, I mean, we're creating apps, we're connecting people, because we know that community overall is number one. And so that's what I really strive to do with everything. And so that was a huge struggle for me, to really let go of other people's judgments and realize that that's about them, and the people who are for me are going to be for me. They're going to be my number one fan. They're going to want to know more, and then they're going to want to hire me. And so that was like a huge lesson I learned.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, I mean, everyone I know, including myself and you, of course, has gone through that, where there's going to be, I mean, some people actually don't have really any support, it seems like, but there's always going to be people that just don't support it. Like, and there's so many reasons why that may be. Maybe they just really don't get it. Maybe they best for you. Maybe they're just jealous. Like,
yeah,
they're a little bit evil. I don't know, but like,
right.
And I hear a lot of just people and women in general kind of talking about how they're not, like, they don't want to just get started because people are going to think that they're crazy. And that's like one of my things I always talk about is like, you are crazy. Like, not everyone does this. You are pretty crazy. But
yeah,
you have to be crazy, or whatever you want to call it, to like get to this point and actually make it happen. It's kind of like weighing out, is it worth it for me to try to please these people who are probably never going to be pleased with me anyway?
Yes.
Or just go towards my dreams. The worst case scenario is that you tried and it didn't work, but
right.
The people I know who have really went after it, it works. You know,
yeah.
You have to take that action. And I love that you said that it was kind of like fuel for you, because that's kind of how I've used it too. Like, all right, well, now I'm just really going to go do it.
Right.
Eat your words a little bit.
It actually reminds me of, I don't know if you ever watch like stuff on Hulu, but they have the ads now for Samsung, especially as a brander now. Like, I really pay attention to like marketing, and a quote that I heard from one of my mentors, he said, marketing at its best tells a story. And so I think Samsung's latest ad, it's do what you can't. And at the end, this guy's like narrating this whole thing, and it's a bunch of like millennials doing things with their phones, shooting their own stuff. And he's like, but the one thing we all have in common is that when people say we can't, we all have the same response. Just watch me. And I saw that ad, I got chill. I still have chills right now. I know. I was like, oh my God, Samsung, you're killing it. Yeah. So like, I was taking notes. I was like, this is good. So yeah, like, you know, some people, and I think that's really what separates those who do and those who don't, is that when they're faced with adversity, either they crumble or they get stronger. And so I think it's important to really build. I think that's why mindset is so important. And if I hadn't been doing my personal development work beforehand, it would have definitely crumbled me. And so I think that that's the main key. Like, any 20-something, you know, we think like you just wake up and be awesome. And not that you can't, but life is hard sometimes, usually. And you're going to need something to fall back on, to remember, and to help fuel your next step, you know. And so I think it's important to really put that at the forefront, because of course we want to make money, but we want to help people too, but we have to help ourselves first. Like, we can't show up fully in our business if we don't show up fully for ourselves. So I think that's like the biggest lesson that adversity has really taught me.
Yeah. And two other things that you mentioned before we move on to talking about like your current business, that I thought are really good for others that are watching to keep in mind. I think it's really cool that you started your business on just a blog that you had, and like a real passion. And I love that you kind of have this story too, because I'm going to be interviewing another relationship coach who is like 20 or 21, really young 20s. And so I'm sure that was like an interesting thing, or some people are just going to really doubt you. Like, you're only 22 or 20, whatever, who cares? Like, you don't know this stuff. You don't know how the world works. Like, that's how I was raised. Like, you're just a kid. You don't know why. You don't know about the world. But the fact is, I really love that this was obviously something you were interested in. You kind of just started writing about it. And I think our generation, I was like that too. Like, I had a couple blogs that I ended up deleting, and like I did a couple things here and there that I would put videos out, or like little things like, like I was actually passionate about marketing even before college, actually, which is kind of weird.
Right.
But that's like, sometimes we want to do the thing that seems right. And it's almost stupid, because it's like we start our business, and then we're like, we have all this possibility to do whatever you want, but we still try to look for like, what's the right thing? What am I going to make money?
Oh my God.
Trust me it. You just got to do what you love and what you're passionate about. Otherwise, you might as well work the job. You might as well stay free, you know?
Exactly. No, I completely agree.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, I love when that thing happened at your church with those people saying what they said, that your husband brought up all of your accomplishments. And I think that's something that you always have to turn back to. I had this time in my business where I had an unhappy client who just told me, like, I didn't know anything about what I said I knew things about. I was all about the money, whatever. She wanted a refund. And then I also got like scammed by like a legitimate scam artist. And I literally thought about I was like, I just should quit. Like, this is happening for a reason, right? Yeah. And the mentor I was working with was like, you need to write down everything you've accomplished in the last year and see what is really the sign. Like, what do you really need to do? And doing that was so huge. And you can do that whether you're brand new in your business or haven't even started, or if you have, because something that I think we all have, like, that I'm just seeing, is that we've all like have these accomplishments that are big and different, and you just got to accept that, like, oh, I did that and it was awesome. Like, nothing's ever perfect, but like what you had accomplished by that point, even though maybe you still felt like you were struggling in some ways, like, that was all really huge stuff at the same time.
Yeah. No, it's so funny that you said about listing your accomplishments. I was just listening the other day to a Tony Robbins thing, and it was about creating unstoppable confidence, because even though I'm like, I still really struggle with, being an introvert and like really making myself visible and putting myself out there. Usually I just do it and don't think about it. You know what I mean? I feel like that's not the best strategy, because then you're freaking out after you've done it. So I was like, I need some help with this. So going to the master, Tony Robbins, he was talking about, we really have to work on changing our memories and really remembering our accomplishments. And he gave a homework. He was like, I want you to write down your 5 accomplishments right now, because when you write it, you're more likely to remember it. You can revisit it if you're ever like struggling. And he was just saying, our minds control our perception fuels our actions create the results, and then the results reaffirm the beliefs that we have. And so if your perception or your belief is, I can't do anything, people are going to judge me, I'm not very confident, then that's going to inspire you to take no action, which means you're not going to get any results, which means you're going to be like, see, your brain's going to be like, oh my God, I told you. And so he was really talking about like really sitting down and thinking about at least 5 accomplishments. And I was like, oh my God, he's really going to make me do this. So I sat down and I started thinking about them. And he was like, it doesn't matter who you are, if you're in business or not, or whatever you're doing, everyone has achieved something. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be big. It could be tiny. And I know for me, like a huge thing, I mean, the number one on my list was graduating high school. And I know a lot of people don't really think about it like that. They're like, okay. But for me, my mom passed away when I was 16, and I still had to take care of my brothers. And then we got into this legal thing, and we eventually ended up getting separated. And so going to school every day was a struggle. I didn't even think I would live to see past 18. I'm getting like emotional right now, but for me, that's like one of my biggest accomplishments. Having finished high school and having done it, it's like this thing that I have to keep reminding myself that I'm still alive. I didn't give up. And like, if anything, that made me stronger. And if anything, I'm an example for other people. And like, to be able to, like, thinking on yourself is what really messes people up. And so for me, I try to think about, like, who could I help today with my story? And if just one person messages me or texts me or calls me or whatever and is like, you know, I saw your thing on Facebook or your email or whatever, and it really helped me with XYZ, like, that's enough for me to wake up the next morning and to do it again. And so when I heard that Tony Robbins thing, I was like, I had to take a step back and really think about, like, you know what? I am somebody. Like, I can help people. It doesn't matter how young I am. It doesn't matter the shit that I've, like, not done or failed at. I could still provide value in others' lives. So I completely agree that on what you said about really thinking about how far you've come and how you could be really of value to other people through sharing your story.
And we want to, like you said with the high school graduation, it's like, to a lot of people that maybe not the biggest accomplishment. And I'm sure maybe, I don't know if I'm right, but maybe there's a voice in your head that's like, oh, that's not really an accomplishment.
Yeah, for the longest time, I was like, whatever, I finished.
Like, that was something that took effort, you know? It's not like it happened super easily, and it, you know, like, everyone's accomplishments are different, you know? And I think especially, okay, you're young, you're getting started as an entrepreneur, so you're seeing people who've had much more experience. You're also seeing people who are talking about these huge numbers of amounts of money they made and just these big, big, big accomplishments. And you're like, well, this isn't an accomplishment. Okay, I got my first client, or I graduated school, or like, who cares? But there's somebody, it's the ideal client thing, like, there's someone just a few steps behind you, that first client, or whatever, fill in the blank, graduating high school, is going to inspire them because they're feeling how you felt before you did it, you know? So it's just important to, like, if you don't accept what your accomplishments are, you're not helping people as much as you could be. Like, until you really fully embrace your accomplishments, you're not really serving your full purpose, I don't think.
Yeah, I completely agree. Plus, I also think it kind of incites gratitude in others, because, you know, maybe people didn't think about graduating high school. Maybe now they're like, oh shit, you know what? I was bullied, or, you know, it was hard. Maybe I wasn't a good student, and they didn't really think about it because, you know, once you graduate, you're like, thank God that's over, you know? And so I think it's also a point of gratitude to sort of influence people to rethink how they see their accomplishments, and that it doesn't have to be a financial accomplishment. And another thing, like, when I was a love coach, I was like, it's not really about getting married and finding the one. That's like icing on the cake. It's about being, like, secure in who you are, so that it doesn't matter if you're with someone or not, you love the company that you're keeping. And so yeah, like, it's all about perspective, like all about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to wrap things up a little bit. I don't want to keep you too long. This is a good learning experience on how long to go. That's fine. I love it.
Yeah, right.
But that being said, I would love for you to just give us a little bit of, I guess, explanation on, like, so you build this business, it started seeing success. I know that you had even more success than you even mentioned here today. And then you decided to, like, change things up and take a whole new risk and do something totally different. So how did that even happen?
Yeah, so it wasn't so different. I have actually been doing design since, like, the 8th grade. Again, I am a huge nerd. And so I was participating in, like, Buffy forums and charm stuff. And I was making avatars and banners. And then eventually I would actually connect with forum creators to create the actual forums that people were going to participate in. And so I always kept that sort of passion up, but it was more like in my free time. And then I sort of let it go in college to really do theater and acting and stuff. And then to build my business, I was like, well, I need a website and I need like all this other graphic stuff. And I was like, thank God I know what I'm doing in that respect. So I started to get more and more into it. And I was like, wow, I really miss this. Like, it's been a while. I don't really know why I ever stopped doing this. And so I started to do design work on the side for the people in like the groups I was in, like the masterminds. And then I was like, I should definitely start charging for this, right? Because it's a valuable thing that people wanted. So I was doing logos for like $100 and super cheap. And doing all that stuff, but it helped build my portfolio. I got really good testimonials. And so I kind of had it in my back pocket, essentially. And so I started to feel less passionate about love coaching because at the end of the day, I was hearing a lot of things. I mean, I think people, I don't think women, but I think men especially would feel very surprised to hear about how often and how frequently women are like assaulted and things like that. And it really took a toll on like my energy. And I sort of started to feel, I got too invested, you know what I mean? And so I realized that I needed to really take a step back and reevaluate if this is what I wanted to do for a while. You know, I was already maybe 2 years in, and I was like, can I really do this for 5 years? Can I do this for 7? And when I was honest with myself, I was like, I don't think I can. And I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do? So then that's when I turned back into design, and I started doing that. But it wasn't until like super recently that I started reading about branding and stuff, because I really, you know, I'm competing with like sites like Upwork or Fiverr and stuff like that. And I was like, how can I really set myself apart from other designers? Because I don't just want to be a freelancer. I still want to have my own business. I don't really want to work for someone else. And so I started really reading about branding and setting myself apart as a designer and really building that knowledge that separates me from just an order taker, which is what most designers are. And so I joined your group, and I was like, this is awesome. This is the kick in the butt that I needed. And it fueled me more. I started reading more books. I started watching more YouTube videos of people I really admire who were designers with their own agencies and studios. And I was like, oh shit, like this could happen for me. And then that's where I am today. I feel like as someone who has built not only this brand, but my other brand, and having seen other entrepreneurs like really struggle. And I know for me, I kept changing my brand. I was like, okay, I'm gonna deal with these people. I'm gonna deal with this people. And like when you have that sort of uncertainty, people don't really know how to work with you or what you really do or if you can help them. And so when you have a brand that is strong, that is cohesive, that is visible, and you start saying no to the things you don't want to do, then people really start to think of you top of mind, like, oh, Shamia, you know, she doesn't do websites anymore. She does branding. I have a friend who like needs that. And so that's what I'm really trying to do here. Like really like be more visible, saying no to the things I don't want to do, and allowing space for my ideal clients to come find me and work with me so I can help them do the same thing.
Yeah. And so funny, but not really, that this business is pretty much started the same way as your other one. It was just something that you always kind of enjoyed, and like, it, like, it was a passion, essentially, or at least a skill, you know, that you kind of always had and were like fiddling with. Oh, this is a business.
Right? Oh my God. How many of us, well, I don't really know how many. I'm in the late 20s. So, I mean, I remember MySpace, like, that definitely, like, had us dabbling with, like, 6-figure careers. And I was like, why didn't I think of this sooner? Like, it's still something I enjoy, but it's like, that's the other thing. I think it's important to remember and to really dive into your passions, because of course we want to build a business, but you have to like love your business. You have to be like on fire for it, because if you're not, then just do something else. Like, walk away, because it's not going to be worth it when you actually, because then you start working with clients that you don't really like, doing projects you don't want to like do, and that just attracts more clients you don't like and more projects you don't want to do. And at that point you feel obligated to complete them, and it's just like this soul-sucking cycle that if you had just said no, you could have made more space for the things that you do want to do.
And one thing that I was kind of hearing from just listening to your story is like, you did realize eventually that, oh, this business isn't really what I want to be doing forever. But it sounds like in the beginning, that's not the way you felt. It was, you felt really lit up about it and excited and fired up, and then it changed. So I think a lot of people any age, they just get so nervous that they're going to invest in a business and put so much time into it, and then it not work, or it just not be it. And I think it's something that you can avoid doing the wrong things, right? So like, if you're feeling like this isn't what I want to do, it actually wouldn't be fun. But at the same time, sometimes things are going to change and you just can't avoid that. You know, like, I think you doing that first business was definitely not a mistake or a wrong move. I think it was exactly what you needed to do at the time. And you probably needed to reach the people that you reached and get the experience that you got, and then now do this. So I just think that it's not something that you really touched on, but it's a big piece of your story, is shifting business. So I think that's just something to kind of take away, is like, if you're feeling fired up about something, go for it, even if it may not be what you do for 20 years. And then at the same time, if you are already doing something and you're feeling like you're starting to slightly hate it or feel resentful about it, or your energy there, try something new. Like, you have plenty of time.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, when I filled out your questionnaire, you were talking about the biggest piece of advice, and it was, don't be afraid to change your mind. Like, I mean, I feel like we've been fed all this stuff from other generations, like, you have to stick to something, and if you're not, people aren't going to take you seriously, like all this other shit. And it's like, but why though? Like, we're humans, we're complex, we have different interests. Why not explore them, get paid to do it while you do it, and then move on to the next passion? You know, I just don't think that, you know, every single thing you do has to stay forever. You know, I mean, nothing in life is permanent. Why does your job have to be? Why do you have to stay in a job for 20, 30 years? Like, to be miserable? Like, no, I'd rather have 18 jobs that I loved and did than one job that I hated and stuck with because that's the right thing to do, you know? And so that's my biggest, like, piece of advice. Like, don't be afraid to change your mind. It's okay. You know, because when you're successful, people aren't going to remember your failures. And I'll be like, oh, remember when she was doing this shit? No. I was thinking really quick about Mark Cuban, who I love. And he's gotten fired so many times from so many jobs. But do you think people remember that? No. He owns a basketball team. He's a tech billionaire. No one's talking about that. But it's important to know, like, it's okay. Like, you can move to the next thing. But you also want to make sure that you're not doing it out of, like, a self-sabotage place. You know, really give it some thought if you're changing it because your passion has changed, or you're changing it because you're afraid to go to the next level. So I think that's also something to keep in mind.
Always knowing the difference between fear and what you want.
Yes. Exactly.
I love that. So I think that is just a great place to kind of cut it off, because I think that was a great piece of advice for people to kind of leave with. And I'm so glad you're technically the first interview. And so
awesome.
Oh
my God, I'm so honored. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that we got to have you on, because it really is an inspirational story. And so I know that you are sharing it, but I just hope that you keep sharing it, because it's really inspirational and just amazing.
Thank you.